You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com. Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Alert. Clear all channels.
Fresh from America's Dairyland.
Ladies and gentlemen,
From the Benches Podcast.
Touchdown, Packers. Go
Packers Talk Radio Network. You're listening to From the Benches with Ross Uglum and Ryan Hilsland.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the From the Benches podcast. I am your host, writer at Cheesehead TV, PackersTalk.com, Ross Uglum. With me, as always, is Ryan Hilsland. Ryan, how are you?
Doing well. Back after a pretty long hiatus here. First day of training camp today on a beautiful Tuesday morning in Green Bay. This is going to be a pretty brief discussion here. It is the middle of the work week. I'm heading back to Milwaukee as soon as we're done recording this to get to work. But we're gonna discuss some training camp thoughts after the first day of practice.
Yeah, this is a very special edition. We apologize, obviously, for the long absence. As we'll discuss shortly, not a whole hell of a lot went on between the draft and, obviously, this year, the first day of camp. We're live from right across the practice field at the D2 Sports Bar, the Stadium District Sports Bar attached to the Best Western. A really nice place with a big open patio and a bar, and we were fortunate enough to get brunch of Jace anyway here at about 10:30 in the morning. So since the draft, we've basically found out nothing except that 6 guys have started on the PUP, Jordy Nelson being one of those, Ty Montgomery, TJ Lang, among others. And from a personnel perspective, not a whole lot has gone on besides Clay Matthews and Dayton Jones both being moved to outside linebacker. But Ryan, do you think that that's a permanent thing, or is there a chance that maybe Dayton and Clay will also be used inside?
Oh, I think they're both going to get moved around a little bit. They'll primarily be outside linebackers. I think Clay is going to be back to mostly playing his original position at outside linebacker, but I think he's proven that is able to play inside very effectively, so I think Capers will be shuffling him around a little bit just to give him some different looks, but I think he's primarily back to the outside, and then with Dayton, he's going to be an outside guy on early downs, maybe put his hand in the dirt for some nickel stuff. I don't think either of them are going to be full-time 100% outside linebackers, but I think they are primarily going to stick at that position and maybe just to switch it up a little bit, move them around. But I think it's going to be mostly full-time moves.
Well, just as players, I mean, they're both of them. Their primary function is to rush the passer, and they're going to do that, I think, for this team from whatever position works the best for that down and distance and for that package. So, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think that's exactly how they're going to be used. This was a very interesting start of training camp. As some of you know, I'm with the North Dakota State affiliate for Scout, and through them I was able to actually get credentialed. So I've been on the field, and one of the things that I noticed is, guys, John Kuhn's not here. I read something yesterday that John was told not to take out an ad quite yet in the Green Bay Packers or in the Green Bay Press Gazette thanking the fans, but they gave his locker away and they took down his nameplate. So where do you think we stand here on whether John Kuhn is or is not going to be a part of things here in 2016?
Well, I mean, he's obviously not in the immediate plans, but I think he's a guy who could get a call if we have a rash of injuries. You have a couple of different people go down, you need an extra body for training camp that, maybe a couple of long-term injuries, and he's going to be someone who does make the roster. But I really think it's just an injury situation. He's not going to come back just because one of these younger guys isn't performing. We're moving on without John Kuhn unless something drastic happens.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a one-for-one potentially. I think if something were to happen to Aaron Ripkowski, it'd be a quick phone call, and that would be kind of it. I think that Ripper's, at this point, really the fullback of the future, and he'll probably be here for a number of years. It'd be very strange to foresee him pricing himself out of the league. Yep.
All right.
It'd be very strange to see himself pricing himself out of Green Bay at the fullback position. You're not seeing a lot of fullbacks in this day and age getting huge deals. So you would just assume that that Ripkowski's going to be here for a long time. One of the things that McCarthy mentioned at his press conference this morning, he took a more positive look than you might think about playing a fifth game. But what became immediately apparent to me was that we're going to see a lot of the young players, and with Green Bay playing 5 preseason games, I would expect to see little to none of the veterans. What do you think of how this team is going to navigate having to play a 5th preseason game, especially when you talk about last year and the entire season was derailed by one preseason injury?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be a lot of the younger guys. It's going to be an audition for some of these guys to get game reps. A lot of the guys in the 3rd, 4th string are really just playing special teams and not really getting that many reps in practice outside of drills. So an extra preseason game is a big opportunity for them to get actual game time position reps. I don't think we'll see Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Josh Sitton, any of those guys in that first preseason game, maybe very briefly, but it adds an entire game worth of auditions for those younger guys, and that's going to be big. I think it'll help the coaching staff make evaluations to determine what they're going to do from a roster standpoint. It's a lot more film that those guys are going to have out there. But I think with an entire a full game, I don't think you're going to see that many more reps from the veterans as you would with 4. So I think it's going to get cut down a lot. Until that second to last preseason game, not more than a series or 2 for those first units for the veterans. It's going to be a lot different, but hopefully it'll be a good thing as long as that big injury can be avoided. So
as we've kind of mentioned or at least alluded to, the Packers will open up the NFL preseason 1 week from Sunday against the Colts as the Pro Football Hall of Fame honors Brett Favre. So that's that 5th and extra preseason game that they're talking about. So Ryan, we do this now kind of every year, at least we have for the last couple. Did you come in to this training camp looking for anything specific on offense? Was there some a player that you were kind of paying attention to, or were you just hoping to see something that resembled the 2014 unit?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for a big improvement on offense, obviously, but in the first practice at training camp, the pads aren't on. It's the first time a lot of these guys are, especially these rookies, the guys we haven't seen, the guys we're looking to get a look at. It's their first practice ever. They're not wearing pads. You're not going to see a ton. You're just looking for something to stand out. Somebody did. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But as far as an offense in general, you want to see Jordy Nelson be able to come back and be healthy. He's nearly a year removed from the injury that held him out of last season. He's on the PUP now. He didn't. He was out there in a baseball cap today. You want to see him come back and be healthy and be effective like he was 2 seasons ago. And you want to see some of these other guys. The wide receiver position is going to be a huge training camp battle. And the fact that Jordy Nelson's maybe being held out cautiously in the beginning of this training camp is going to be an opportunity for a bunch of those guys to get some reps and to separate themselves. Some receiver that we think is a good player is going to get cut from this team, no matter what. There's looks like we have 6 quality wide receivers. We're not going to be keeping 6 guys on the roster. That's probably the biggest thing to watch. I'm always watching for the depth on the offensive line, how quickly Spriggs can get in there and be effective, be quality depth and the guys backing up the guards. TJ Lang's not in there on the PUP also, who's going to be backing up Sitton and Lang, who's maybe possibly going to be replacing Sitton and Lang next season if those guys aren't both back. So there's plenty of stuff to watch with the offensive line and the receiver position. And, there's stuff to keep an eye on.
It sure seems like they're higher on Lane Taylor than we ever have been. I mean, they gave him a multi-year extension, not for a lot of money, but, I mean,
they're going to keep him around.
Right. So, and he was the first guard that went out there in Lang's place. So maybe he is a guy that we just underestimate or at least don't have the exact same evaluation on the player as the team does. But I think you touched on a lot of what I was looking for, and unfortunately we didn't get to see any of it. I mean, we didn't get to see any of the new toys because what I was concerned about on offense is, well, how do you get better? And either one, you get healthier, two, you have players develop, or three, you get to play with your new toys, and the only new toy was Jared Cook, and he was also on the PUP.
Yeah.
He's a big guy, though. I saw him talking to an assistant coach, and he is strikingly bigger than the rest of the tight ends, and a really impressive athlete. But you wanted to be able to see how Jordy Nelson looked, even just running and cutting, because a mental part of it is absolutely part of the game. I mean, once you get physically, you can test out however you want. You can do the knee resistance test, side to side, whatever. But until you can convince yourself mentally that you can cut the way you used to be able to cut, there's a hurdle to get over. So you want to see that. We didn't get to see that. Well, how's Ty Montgomery look now in his second year of the offseason after that ankle injury? Well, we didn't get to see that either. So the players that we were looking forward to watching development from, we just didn't get to see. So, yes, it's the first day of camp, but at the same time, it's like, man, I wish we could have maybe gotten a little bit more of an inclination as to what was going on, good or bad, I guess. But I agree with you. I mean, paying attention to the offensive line was something, and you just can't learn a whole lot in shells. You're able to see some of the configurations that they're up to, and it's a lot of what we expected. Watching Murphy take snaps at right tackle, Spriggs at left tackle, that seems to be the way that they're going to use the two guys that they took in the 2016 draft. Both guys that you and I are incredibly high on, or at least in relation to their draft position, certainly. Ryan, let's talk a little bit of defense. Now, we kind of covered what we were looking for on the offense. The defense maybe not as beat up necessarily or missing guys in the same way that the offense is on the PUP side of things. Got guys that have gone, but guys that were expected to be gone. BJ Raji obviously retired. Mike Pennell is going to have to miss the first 4 games. But you got a chance to see the big guys that they're sort of being replaced with. Dean Lowry was a full go. Kenny Clark was a full go. Guyon, who's hopefully passed any legal or character concern type things, at least as far as missing games is concerned. He was around, so you got to see that. Anything in particular on defense that you were looking forward to or that you were going to pay attention to?
Well, yeah, again, for the first day of practice, it's stuff you kind of need to see with pads on. You're looking at can Kenny Clark step up and make an impact right away when you've got those pieces missing on the defensive line. Same with the Christian Ringo, who I think we both think can make the team and contribute as a defensive lineman in his second season. And then you're looking at the guys replacing Clay Matthews, who's moved over to the outside, like we talked about. He was he's now moving to the outside. That creates a hole at the inside linebacker position without really having a guy depart the team or have an injury. So you're looking at Jake Ryan to make a step in his second year. You're looking at Blake Martinez, the rookie, to come in and possibly contribute right away. We're going to have Sam Barrington back. Hopefully, he's one of those guys on the PUP after missing last season. So a lot of the stuff, again, that we're looking for on defense, not necessarily stuff you can see. It's hard to get a read on the guys in the defensive line, without contact, without pads on, and then the the guys at inside linebacker. Blake Martinez is a rookie in his first training camp practice. You're not going to be able to tell a lot there, but that's as far as when training camp, throughout the rest of training camp, that's what you're going to be looking for. Can those young guys at inside linebacker, replace what you had at Clay Matthews at inside linebacker, and can the guys on the defensive line replace what you had in B.J. Raji, what you're going to miss from Mike Pennell in the first part of the season, what you're going to miss from Dayton Jones moving out to outside linebacker. There's a lot of shuffling going on the defense, and it's going to be interesting to watch how that works out as training camp goes on.
Well, I think the number one thing I always pay attention to on the defensive side of the ball in these early shell practices are configurations.
Yeah.
One thing that you saw today that you didn't see last year, basically at all, was Demarius Randall playing a little bit of slot. And I found that interesting because Matt Miller from Bleacher Report mentioned that he really thought that Demarius Randall could have a Tyrann Mathieu type impact this season in the Packers' revised defense. And I got some questions on Twitter, people asking me, well, what's revised about it? And I said, I would guess at this point that Matt knows something that we don't know, because I didn't really know what's going on. And if they're going to use Randall as an inside-outside, safety corner hybrid, they have to feel real comfortable about Ladarius Gunter and Quentin Rollins. Those are two guys that got a lot of reps outside. But if they're going to kind of unleash Demarius Randall in like a Tyrann Mathieu or a Charles Woodson type role, that's very exciting because potentially, he is a very good player in that role because of his experience at safety at Arizona State, especially in that scheme where they played tons of cover zero. He had to play a lot of man coverage. He did a lot of blitzing. I think that you could see a lot of fun things with Demarius Randall. Maybe not in the preseason because they're probably going to go vanilla, but certainly week 1 against the Jaguars, you might see him line up in some different places.
Yeah.
And then the linebacker grouping, how they use those. Nothing really surprising on the defensive line. Obviously, you're going to use Dean Lowry at strong side. Obviously, Kenny Clark's playing nose. That was all normal stuff. Daniels and Ringo doing most of the work on the weak side because of their short stature. But these are things that were expected. As far as the linebackers, Fackrell mostly playing outside, Matthews playing outside all day today. But with Sam Barrington on the PUP, you got to see that inside linebacking group of the future. The two mid-round picks over the last 2 years in Jake Ryan and, of course, Blake Martinez from Stanford. Those two got to work together today as the 1A grouping of inside linebacker, and in fact, one of the groups that they went out there was a very 2016 heavy class. They had Clark at nose, they had Lowry at strong side, and they had both rookie inside linebackers working. Part of that is certainly injury related or PUP related, but at the same time, you've got to be excited that the team already has this level of excitement about their rookie class, and that the defensive coaching staff is that comfortable moving forward. Ryan, I know it was only about an hour and 45 minutes worth of camp that we watched, but just touch on a couple of observations that you had from the other side of the field up in the stands.
We've talked about quite a bit of it, but we haven't mentioned the quarterback position. You feel, obviously, we'd like to see Aaron Rodgers have a bit of a bounce-back season after a down season for him last year. Scott Tolzien no longer with the team, so the quarterback group looks quite a bit different. I think we're both comfortable with Hundley as the backup. I think he can be okay. Hopefully, we don't have to resort to Hundley getting a lot of game reps. But after those two guys, it's we don't really know what we have. With Callahan and with Marquise Williams, the third and the fourth guy right now, they're both rookies, correct?
No, Callahan, I think, was with the team last year, at least for like a practice squad run or something like that. I think this is his second post-college season.
Okay, so, but either way, those are two very inexperienced guys without game experience, guys without a lot of training camp and reps. And, we've seen the second and third quarterbacks come into play in the last couple of seasons. It's a position to watch. It's a different looking quarterback group. And after 1 and 2, which I'm pretty comfortable with, it'll be interesting to see if either of those guys can step up and grab the third spot and be somebody who we maybe think can develop or be somebody who can, not be a disaster if both Rodgers and Hundley go down. So I think that's something to watch. And you did notice we talked a lot about guys injured, not playing, but I think McCarthy also said that none of those guys are going to be long-term, out for the long term. Those are guys that are going to be back at some point during the early parts of camp, and they're eventually going to get out there. So there's nobody who we're not going to get to see. We're going to see all these guys eventually. Yeah. We're going to see all the things we want to see. We just have to be a little patient with some of these guys.
He told us this morning that he expects all of those players to be back during camp. Yeah. So no, like you said, no long-term effects, no week one effects for really any of these guys. As far as observations for me, I agree. Brett Hundley really looked to be a little bit more settled.
Yeah, he's comfortable.
Didn't panic. Had a wow throw over the middle to Perillo today that I really got a kick out of. But what I look for, I guess, just in the the first couple of days is what do these guys look like? And they talked a ton about getting bigger, especially in this draft and in this offseason. I think one of the complaints, especially during those years when Green Bay was fighting a losing battle against the Colin Kaepernick San Francisco teams, they looked like a junior varsity team. I mean, they were good football players, but they were just smaller and shorter than their opponents. Dean Lowry is a really big guy. Mm-hmm. So is Jason Spriggs. I touched on Jared Cook. This is just a bigger group of individuals than maybe at least we've ever been around in this a little bit more intimate camp setting where you can actually,
where you're right there.
Yeah, where you can actually see guys. I think that the Packers definitely got bigger this year. I don't know if they necessarily got better or not, but the size of the athletes that Thompson is bringing in now is remarkable. I mean, some of these guys were pretty darn big. Mm-hmm. And one of the new guys I want to ask you a rather famous question, at least as far as this podcast is concerned. Is Trevor Davis going to be smiling or have a serious face on his Hall of Fame bust?
I think probably smiling. He was the guy that really jumped out. We've said that it's hard to see anything when they're not wearing pads, but Trevor Davis had in the team portion, the last portion that we watched. We got a nice view of that. He made 3 really good catches in that team portion. He was on the other end of the field for the position drills from where I was. I was on the side where the defensive guys were going. But once they started doing the team portion of the practice, he made 2 really nice catches along the sideline, and then he went up on a deep ball that was a little bit underthrown, came back and made the catch on a contested, kind of a jump ball, but an underthrown deep ball. Went and made a catch over. I forget who the defensive back was, but 3 highlight reel catches for a late draft pick rookie in his first practice of his first training camp. It was nice to see him go out and show flashes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys. He was a very divisive draft choice. He had an undraftable grade, basically from a lot of scouts or a lot of draft nicks, and then the excuse makers, or the people that thought it was maybe an okay selection, just said that, look, Cal rotated 6 guys in and out of that offense, and they didn't have a number 1 receiver, and that's why Davis's numbers were so unimpressive, because they just rotated guys in, they kept guys fresh, and they slung it around with Jared Goff. I was really impressed. As far as long speed, it's either him or Sam Shields on this team from just a track perspective, and that's something that he, this team lacked last year was any semblance of a deep threat. Yeah, Jeff Janis has track speed, but until the Arizona game, couldn't really figure out a way to get behind anybody.
Right.
And Davis, the 2 things that people say about him is track speed and soft hands, and I think we saw those soft hands today.
Oh, yeah.
I was very, very impressed with him. Certainly an excellent way to make a first impression,
Yep.
not only, obviously to the fan base, but to the coaching staff as well. And And you mentioned, I mean, there are 7 receivers fighting for more than likely 6 or 5 spots, and he's among that group, and a guy that if he plays like this in any preseason game, as far as putting stuff on film, he's not going to make it through to the practice squad. And then I think that's what you have to hope for. Plus, he's, as far as everyone says, an excellent kick returner. So I think that's a guy who you probably thought was going to be on the roster, and after today, you probably think he's going to be on the roster a little bit more.
Yep.
Brian, do you have any concerns moving forward as far as what you saw today?
Well, I think the big concern is when can Jordy Nelson come back from this injury and start showing that he's healthy? It's been nearly a year since his injury. That's a lot of rehab time for that injury. I think everybody had hoped that he would be ready for training camp. We'll see if it's just the medical staff being cautious with him, or if there is something lingering, if he's really not ready. That is a positive as far as the other wide receivers trying to make the team, but for the chances that the Packers are going to have this season, as far as potentially being Super Bowl contenders, it hinges a lot on Jordy Nelson coming back and being the Jordy Nelson of old. So I would say that's my biggest concern. The fact that he's not, the fact that he isn't out there yet after this much time rehabbing that injury, that's the biggest thing to watch going forward.
Well, I think he definitely thinks he's ready. I mean, you can tell that even after OTAs, he was a little bit irritated that he wasn't out there, and now he's not out here. And I think he's kind of raring to go. Yeah, I think the camp concerns fall right in line with the team concerns. When are they going to get Barrington back? When are we going to figure out who the starters at inside linebacker are? When are they going to get all these new weapons, or hopefully improved weapons, or healthier weapons into that offense so that it can get churning again? Because there is no change on the line. I mean,
we've got more continuity in the offensive line.
Everybody that was there when everything was good in 2014 is still there, except now as depth you have Kyle Murphy, Jason Spriggs, and J.C. Tritter, all guys that you think are top-notch depth, or at least potential future starters. Plus, they think the world apparently of Lane Taylor.
Yeah.
So those are my concerns moving forward. Is getting those skill position guys figured out, the guys that play off the ball and on the perimeter, defensive and offensive. Ryan, is there anybody that you're concerned about as far as maybe a guy that we're not thinking of right now that might get cut?
I mean, it's tough to tell after one day, but I think we're definitely going to see a good player get cut from the wide receiver group, and also probably somebody from the secondary that we kind of think highly of. Potentially, you might see Goodson, the corner in the secondary, get cut. I think he's a guy I think will probably make the roster, but those groups are so deep. There's so many guys there that somebody I think that is a good player from the secondary or from the wide receiver group is going to get cut, and is probably going to get picked up by somebody else. I just don't see how all of these players that we think are good players are going to make the roster. I just don't think there's room for anybody. So I think those are the position groups that a potential surprise cut's going to come from. It's just we'll see who that's possibly going to be going forward.
Yeah, I think you're dead right on with that Goodson thing. I think this might be the last ride of Dimitri Goodson. People are really high. I'm not one of them, but on Dorleant from Northern Iowa. Hawkins is another good undrafted corner. I feel like they're not super excited about Dimitri Goodson, and why not give Joe Witt the chance to work with somebody else? I think this is now, or would be, I think, his third year with the team.
Yeah.
It's just not...
nothing's really clicked, and he was a late
six-round guy. Something like that.
Yeah. The guy was going to be raw, he was kind of a flyer. He was, let's see if we can turn this guy into something. And I think after a third training camp, if he doesn't really flash something this year, you're right. They're going to move on to one of these other younger guys and see if one of those guys can turn into it. This wasn't a guy who got a lot invested in him. And if it doesn't turn out, I don't think it's going to bother anybody to let Goodson go and let somebody else have a chance.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning back into From the Benches. We apologize once again for our extended absence. We're going to try and come back to a more weekly schedule now that training camp and the season has returned. For myself and for Ryan Hilson, thanks for listening to From the Benches, and go Pack Go. While at Packers camp, I was able to sit down with Green Bay running back John Crockett, and Ryan and I are going to play that interview for you guys now.
Here with John Crockett of the Green Bay Packers. John, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not too terribly bad. These first couple of days of camp, it really seems like you're more of the third back than necessarily trying to make the team. Do you feel like you're in a better place than you were a year ago, and what strides have you made?
You always feel better when you come back from year two. I mean, that means that you put a full NFL season under your belt, and that right there just goes along with a ton of experience. It's a little more poised and a little bit more confident to have when you're back for year two. But it's definitely been pretty good. But still, at the end of the day, you still got to make strides and get better.
What do you feel like you have to do to go from the guy that maybe gets time when someone gets hurt to being part of the offense to somebody that they want to use in game?
Yeah, see, that's my main focus right now is to put myself in a position where I can be contributing to the offense. That's been my forte my whole life. So I really feel like I can, whatever they want me to do, if it's special teams, if it's catching the ball at the backfield, if it's going in there and filling whatever I got to do to get out there and get some plays and help this team win a Super Bowl. That's my main goal.
You mentioned special teams. You didn't do a lot of tackling at North Dakota State. How much do you feel like that's going to be part of what you're asked to do here in your team?
But definitely, when you're in this level, that's not a emotion. That's actually something that people pride themselves on. At the end of the day, it's only 46 that go. That can play.
Right.
And you just want to make sure that you're part of that 46 every day. I mean, you got tremendous talented players all over the floor. So you don't really know where you're gonna fit in. You just gotta fit in. And once you do that, you stick. And once your opportunities come, you make the best of it. Skill.
Speaking of NDSU, if I remember correctly, they opened you up a little bit more in the passing game your senior season. That's something that maybe James and Eddie don't do as much. Is that something that where you maybe focused a little bit and are trying to make an impact in the passing game?
That's right now. That's one of my strengths. Being able to run routes up the backfield, run routes out of the receiver, run routes and catch the ball. It makes sense to me. That's kind of something that's been a part of my game my whole life, and something that's being able to be utilized more in the SU my senior season. But at the end of the day, the NFL, whatever niche that you have, you try to utilize it.
What has it been like working with the second team and working with Brett, who's a guy that came in the same rookie class that you did? You guys kind of come up together.
At the end of the day, Brett, he's great quarterback. He's my quarterback. Right now, he's my quarterback right now. So, obviously, we know who the guy is. But, if we're talking about the second team aspect of things, he's the guy. And we actually shared our first touchdown together last year against the Patriots. Yep. So me and him have a great connection. The guy that me and him, we constantly text each other throughout, training camp, throughout our season. Just bouncing knowledge off going on. And he knows that I'm in security blanket, and he'll tell you. And with all those girls, I know Crocs will be, That's just our mindset as two individuals I can play with.
Have the coaches talked to you at all about taking reps with the ones, or right now are you pretty locked in with Brett?
Sometimes, you just take reps. I take reps with the offensive line.
Okay, not Aaron, though.
No, not
right.
So he gets in there, he does what he does.
Right.
He's back there doing what he do.
How amazing is it to play, at least like every day, be able to watch a guy like him go through?
Well, it's definitely one of those, some real moments that you dream about. You dream about getting to the NFL, and then you see all the guys that you've been growing up watching and things like that, and then you get to be in the locker room and you realize they're just regular guys like you and I. So it's definitely the best playing with that guy.
Talk to me a little bit about that Detroit game last year. Your first reps in the pros. What was going through your mind and kind of the highlights of that game, and then obviously touch on how it ended?
Oh, well, the first thing that was going to my mind, I was like, okay, I hope they don't switch this run play to a blitz. Then I got No, but I was just joking. No, but no, to be honest with you, all the emotion that was running through was just like, hey, you hear this, what you're doing, you know, you've been preparing yourself for this moment, and I'm going to take advantage of it. You know, as you may know, and you know, you've been through the issue. You know, I'm a guy that loves the big moment. You know, I'm one of those guys that step over the moment, and that's something that I was, you know, just like going right in my road and made a couple things happen, and offensive line, you know, they are who they are. It was fun. It was one of those moments I'll remember forever.
And how about there's a really prominent picture of you running after Rodgers after the Hail Mary.
What was greatness? That's what happened. I had to touch greatness real quick. Hopefully it rubbed off on me a little bit so I can get some of that juice you got. So yeah, no, I just, you know, it's one of those moments like, you know, I just believe that at the end of the day we were going to win that game for some reason. We talked about that, and we went out and did it.
You mentioned to me earlier before we started recording that you haven't been able to follow up with Bison football as much as you have. Obviously, you're a very busy guy. Anything that you'd like to say to Bison fans?
It's not that I haven't been following up on Bison football. I follow up on Bison football. I mean, come on now, like that's my house now. That's my home right there. But you know, just talking to everybody, I haven't been able to do that as much. But to the fans, they all know that I love them tremendously. You know, blood, sweat, and tears, I die green and gold. You know, now I get some green and gold again.
More green and gold, yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, there's nothing like North Dakota State. There's nothing like Bison fans. Packers, they're pretty good too. Pack fans, but it's the same. You know, it's like big brother and little sister. You know, I can't say enough about Bison fans.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
From the benches. From the benches.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.